The day my mother died, my husband laughed. He actually laughed. Right in my face. And what happened next? It changed my entire life forever. But let me take you back to the beginning, because you need to understand how I ended up in that kitchen. Tears streaming down my cheeks, serving appetizers to strangers while my heart was shattering into a million pieces. My name is Clara, and 6 years ago, I thought I'd found my soulmate. I met Derek at a coffee shop. I know, sounds like every rom-com ever made, right? But it really happened that way. I was 24, fresh out of college, working my first real job as an administrative assistant at a small marketing firm. He walked in wearing this sharp navy suit, confident, handsome, the kind of guy who made heads turn, and for some reason, he noticed me. "Is this seat taken?" he asked, pointing to the chair across from mine. I looked around the nearly empty cafe. There were at least 15 other open seats. No, I stammered. "Go ahead." Key smiled. And that smile, it felt like sunshine breaking through clouds. We talked for 2 hours that day. He told me he was an account manager at a big financial consulting firm. He was ambitious, driven. He had plans. Big plans. "I'm going to be running that company one day," he said, leaning back in his chair with this confident grin. "You just watch." I believed him. God help me, I believed every word. 3 months later, we were dating exclusively. 6 months after that, he proposed. My mother was so happy. Oh, my mother. I need to tell you about her. Her name was Grace, and she truly lived up to that name. She was the kindest, warmest, most loving person I've ever known. After my father passed away when I was 12, she raised me all on her own. She worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3. She never complained. Not once. "Clara, baby," she used to say, "life's gonna throw punches, but you keep your chin up and your heart soft. That's how you win." She was my best friend, my rock, my everything. When I brought Derek home to meet her, she hugged him warmly. She cooked his favorite meal after I told her he loved pot roast. She made him feel like family from day one. But later that night, after Derek had left, she sat me down in the kitchen. "Clara," she said softly, "he's charming." "Very charming, I know, right?" I gushed. "Isn't he amazing?" She paused, took my hand, just, "Promise me something, baby. Promise me you'll always remember who you are, no matter what." I laughed it off. "Mom, what are you talking about?" "Derek adores me." She smiled, but there was something in her eyes, something I didn't understand back then. "I'm sure he does, sweetheart. I'm sure he does." I didn't know what she saw that I couldn't. Not yet. The wedding was beautiful. Small, intimate, exactly what I wanted. Derek had pushed for something bigger. "Gotta impress the right people," he said, but I held firm. "This is about us," I told him. "Not about networking." He frowned for a second. Just a flash. Then the smile returned. "You're right, babe. Whatever makes you happy." But I noticed it. That flash. I just didn't want to admit what it meant. The first year of marriage was good. Really good. Derek was attentive, affectionate, always surprising me with little gifts. He'd come home with flowers on random Tuesdays. He'd leave love notes in my lunch bag. I thought I was the luckiest woman alive. Then things started to change. It was subtle at first. So subtle I almost missed it. Derek got promoted. Junior partner at the firm. It was a huge deal. He worked longer hours, came home later, talked endlessly about impressing the senior partners. "This is just the beginning, Clara," he'd say, his eyes gleaming. "Once I make full partner, we'll have everything. The big house, the nice cars, everything." I didn't care about any of that. I just wanted my husband back, but I supported him. I was a good wife. I made his dinners, kept the house perfect. Listened to his work stories even when I was exhausted, and slowly, without me realizing it, I started to disappear. My opinions didn't matter as much anymore. My job? Derek suggested I quit. "Why work that boring little job when I'm making enough for both of us?" He said one night. "Besides, I need you here." I might have to host clients. Important people. But I like my job, I said quietly. He sighed. That heavy, impatient sigh that made me feel like a child asking for too much candy. Clara, I'm trying to build a future for us. Can't you see that? I need you to be a team player here. So I quit. Because I wanted to be a team player. Because I loved him. Because I thought that's what marriage meant. But you want to know what I didn't expect? The moment I became financially dependent on Derek, everything shifted. It wasn't overnight. It was gradual. Like a frog in boiling water, you know? The temperature rises so slowly, you don't realize. You're being cooked until it's too late. Derek started criticizing little things. The way I cleaned. The way I cooked. The way I dressed. You're wearing that? He'd ask, scanning my outfit with a raised eyebrow. We might run into someone from my firm. You forgot to iron my blue shirt. Clara, come on. I have a meeting tomorrow. Why is there dust on the bookshelf? What do you even do all day? Each comment was small, insignificant on its own. But together, they added up. They piled onto my shoulders like stones, weighing me down until I could barely breathe. I stopped recognizing myself. The confident, ambitious girl who'd had dreams and goals. She was fading away, replaced by a woman who walked on eggshells, who second-guessed every decision, who apologized constantly for things that weren't even her fault. I'm sorry. Derek, I'll do better. Derek, you're right. Derek, those phrases became my anthem, and my mother noticed, she definitely noticed, every time I visited her. She'd study my face with those knowing eyes. Clara, baby, you okay? I'm fine, Mom. Just tired. You've lost weight. It's just watching what I eat. You don't seem like yourself. Mom, please. I'm fine. But I wasn't fine. And she knew it. One day, about 3 years into my marriage, she pulled me aside. Clara, she said firmly, I want you to listen to me, Mom. No, listen. She took my face in her hands, the way she used to when I was a little girl. You are smart. You are kind. You are valuable. No one has the right to make you feel small. Do you understand me? I burst into tears. I cried in her arms for 20 minutes straight. All the pain I'd been holding in just poured out. She didn't say anything. She just held me. When I finally pulled myself together, she wiped my tears. You always have a home here, she whispered. Always, no matter what. I nodded, unable to speak. But I didn't leave Derek. I couldn't. I told myself things would get better. I told myself every marriage had rough patches. I told myself I just needed to try harder. Looking back now, I wish I'd listened to my mother. I wish I'd trusted her instincts over my own denial. But hindsight is 20/20, isn't it? Things got worse over the next year. Derek made full partner. It was all he'd ever wanted. And I thought, finally, now things will calm down. Now he'll be satisfied. I was so naive. The success didn't soften him. It hardened him. He became more demanding, more critical, more dismissive. I wasn't a wife anymore. I was an accessory. Something to show off at company events. Something to look pretty and stay quiet. Smile more, he'd hiss in my ear at parties. And don't talk about yourself too much. Nobody cares. But I had no idea what was coming. The real nightmare started when my mother got sick. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I remember because I was folding laundry. Derek insisted on fresh sheets twice a week when my phone rang. Clara. It was my mother's neighbor, Mrs. Henderson. Her voice was shaking. It's Grace. She collapsed. The ambulance is taking her to St. Mary's. The world stopped. I don't remember driving to the hospital. I don't remember parking. I just remember running through those sterile white hallways. My heart pounding so hard I thought it would explode. When I found her, she was conscious but weak. Hooked up to machines. Pale, so pale, Mom. I grabbed her hand. Hey, baby, she whispered, managing a small smile. Don't look so scared. I'm not dying today. But she was wrong. The doctors ran tests. Lots of tests. And then came the diagnosis that shattered everything. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctor's words blurred together. Aggressive, spread, Treatment options limited. Time frame, double quotes. How long? I heard myself ask. It's hard to say. With treatment, perhaps 6 to 8 months. Maybe a year if she responds well. A year. That's all they gave her. 1 year with the woman who had given me everything. I fell apart. But you know what Derek said when I told him? That's rough, babe. But hey, she's had a good life, right? These things happen. These things happen. Like my mother's death sentence was just an inconvenience. I should have seen it then. The complete lack of empathy. The coldness beneath that polished exterior. But I was drowning in grief, and he was still my husband. I still wanted to believe he cared. I need to spend more time with her, I said that night. She might need help. Someone to take care of her. Derek frowned. Clara, I have events coming up. Important dinners. I need you here. Derek, my mother is dying. I know. But she's not dying tomorrow, is she? You can visit on weekends. Stared at him. Really stared. And for the first time, I saw something in his eyes that terrified me. Annoyance. My mother was dying. And he was annoyed, but I pushed it down. Filed it away. Told myself he just didn't know how to handle emotional situations. Over the next few months, divided my time between caring for my mother and keeping Derek happy. It was exhausting, draining. Some days I felt like I was being pulled in half. My mother never complained about not seeing me enough. Even when I could tell she missed me. You come when you can, baby, she'd say. I understand. But I could see the hurt in her eyes every time I had to cut a visit short because Derek called about some dinner or event. And Derek. He grew more impatient by the day. Another trip to see your mother. Clara, I'm starting to think you care more about her than our marriage. She's dying, Derek. Everyone dies eventually. That's just life. Just life. My mother's final months were just life to him. But what happened next? That's when I really understood who I had married. It was a Friday morning. I was in the kitchen preparing for a dinner party Derek was hosting that night. 12 guests. All important partners from the firm. This needs to be perfect, Clara, Derek had said. No mistakes. Mr. Harrison is coming. Mr. Harrison, I'd heard that name 1,000 times. The CEO of Derek's firm. The man who held the keys to Derek's future. Derek was obsessed with impressing him. I was chopping vegetables when my phone buzzed. It was a text from the hospice nurse. Call me immediately. It's urgent. My blood ran cold. I called. And the nurse's words hit me like a physical blow. Clara, I'm so sorry. Your mother passed away this morning. It was peaceful. She went in her sleep. I don't remember what happened next. I think I dropped the phone. I think I screamed. Everything went blurry, like I was underwater. My mother was gone. The one person who had always loved me unconditionally. The woman who had sacrificed everything for me, gone. I don't know how long I sat on that kitchen floor, sobbing. Minutes, hours. Time lost all meaning. Then I heard Derek's voice. Clara. Clara, what's going on? Why aren't the appetizers ready? He walked into the kitchen and found me crumpled on the floor. Tears streaming down my face. What the hell? He looked around at the half-prepared food, the scattered vegetables, the chaos. My mother, I choked out. She died. There was a moment of silence, and then he said the words I'll never forget as long as I live. If your mother died? So what? I looked up at him, unable to process what I'd just heard. What? He sighed. That same impatient sigh I'd heard 1,000 times before. Clara, look, I'm sorry about your mother, really, but Mr. Harrison is coming tonight. Mr. Harrison, do you understand what that means? I can't have you falling apart right now. Derek, my mother just died, and she'll still be dead tomorrow, he snapped. Right now, I need you to pull yourself together and finish preparing this dinner. We'll deal with the funeral stuff later. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be the man I'd married. I can't do this right now, I whispered. I need to go to the hospice. What you need to do is finish making those appetizers." His voice turned cold, hard. "Get up, Clara, now." When I didn't move, he grabbed my arm and yanked me to my feet. "Listen to me," he hissed, his face inches from mine. "I have worked too hard for this. You are not going to ruin my chance with Mr. Harrison because you can't control your emotions. You understand? I should have left right then. I should have walked out that door and never looked back. But I was broken. Grief-stricken, years of conditioning had stripped away my ability to fight back, so I did what he told me. I wiped my tears. I finished the appetizers. I put on a nice dress, the one Derek had picked out for me. I fixed my makeup to hide the redness around my eyes, and when the guests arrived, I smiled. I greeted them at the door. I took their coats. I pretended my world hadn't just collapsed. But the tears kept coming. I couldn't stop them. No matter how hard I tried, they kept sliding down my cheeks. I stayed in the kitchen mostly, repairing dishes, arranging plates, trying to hold myself together. Every few minutes I'd wipe my face and take a deep breath. Then the doorbell rang one more time. Okay, that's Harrison. Derek's voice was practically giddy. "Clara, come here." I dried my hands and walked to the foyer, forcing my face into something resembling a smile. And that's when I saw him, Mr. Harrison. He was tall, distinguished, with silver-streaked hair and kind eyes. There was something about him that seemed familiar, but I couldn't place it. "Richard, welcome." Derek pumped his hand enthusiastically. "We're so honored to have you." "Thank you for the invitation, Derek," Mr. Harrison said warmly. "And this must be your wife." Yes, this is Clara." Derek put his arm around me possessively. "Clara, this is Mr. Richard Harrison, CEO of the firm." I extended my hand. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Harrison." He took my hand and something flickered in his eyes. Something I didn't understand. "Clara," he repeated softly, studying my face. "It's lovely to meet you." The evening went on. I served food. I refilled drinks. I smiled until my face ached. But I couldn't stop crying. And then, about an hour into the dinner, something happened. I was passing through the dining room with a tray of desserts when my legs gave out. I stumbled, nearly dropping everything. Mr. Harrison was at my side in an instant. "Careful," he said, steadying me. Then he looked at my face, really looked, and his expression changed. "You're crying," he said softly. "Why are you crying?" Derek jumped in immediately. "She's fine, Richard." "Just allergies?" "No." Mr. Harrison ignored him completely. He took my hand gently. "Please, tell me what's wrong." I don't know why. Maybe because he was the first person to show me kindness that entire day. But I told him, "My mother died this morning." I whispered. The room went silent. Mr. Harrison's face turned pale. "Your mother?" "Yes. I just found out a few hours ago." But Derek needed me too. "What was her name?" Mr. Harrison's voice was urgent now, intense. Grace Mitchell, and then something happened that I never expected. Mr. Harrison's eyes filled with tears. He dropped my hand and turned slowly toward Derek. The expression on his face was unlike anything I'd ever seen. Rage, pain, disbelief, all mixed together. "You made her serve food," he said quietly. Too quietly. Today of all days. Derek looked confused. "Richard, I don't understand. Everyone knew your wife's mother, Derek." Mr. Harrison stepped closer to my husband. The entire room held its breath. "Everyone except you." He paused. Let the words hang in the air. Grace Mitchell was my sister. The room went completely still. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. The words echoed in my head, bouncing off the walls of my skull. Grace Mitchell was my sister. My mother had a brother I never knew about, and he was standing right in front of me. Derek's face had gone white, completely white, like every drop of blood had drained from his body. I don't, he stammered. "Richard, I had no idea. No idea." Mr. Harrison's voice was trembling now. Not with sadness, with fury. You had no idea that your wife's mother was dying? No idea that she passed away this morning? No idea that you forced a grieving daughter to serve appetizers at your little dinner party? The timing was just ... the timing. Mr. Harrison stepped even closer. Derek actually backed up. Let me tell you about timing, Derek. I've been searching for my sister for 35 years. 35 years. And today of all days, I find out she's gone. And you know how I find out? By watching her daughter cry while serving me canapes. The other guests sat frozen in their seats. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The tension in the room was suffocating. I still couldn't process what was happening. My mother had a brother. How was that possible? She never mentioned him. Not once. Clara. Mr. Harrison turned to me, his expression softening instantly. I know this is a lot to take in. I know you must be confused. Oh, I don't understand, I whispered. My mother never told me about you. She never said she had a brother. Pain flickered across his face. Deep, old pain. That's a long story, he said quietly. One I promised to tell you. But right now, I need to get you out of here. He took off his jacket and draped it gently over my shoulders. It was such a simple gesture, but it nearly broke me. No one had shown me that kind of care in years. Richard, please. Derek's voice had shifted. Desperate now, pleading. Let's talk about this. I'm sure we can. We're done talking, Derek. Mr. Harrison didn't even look at him. His focus was entirely on me. Double quotes, Clara. Do you have a coat? A purse? Anything you need? I nodded weakly. In the bedroom. Go get it. Take your time. I walked to the bedroom in a daze. Behind me, I could hear Derek's frantic whispers. Richard, come on. Be reasonable. This doesn't have to affect our business relationship. I made a mistake, okay? I'll apologize. I'll make it up to her. Please just, Derek. Mr. Harrison's voice cut through like a blade. You made your wife work on the day her mother died. You laughed at her grief. You prioritized your career over her pain. And you expect me to just ... shake hands and move on. I didn't know.
You didn't care. There's a difference. I grabbed my purse and coat from the bedroom. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold them. When I returned to the living room, I found Derek on the verge of tears. Actual tears. I'd never seen him cry before, not once in 6 years. But I knew those weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of fear. His entire carefully constructed world was crumbling, and he knew it. Clara, he rushed toward me, grabbing my hands. Clara, honey, I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I was stressed about the dinner and I handled it badly. Please, let's just talk about this. I pulled my hands away, and something shifted inside me. Maybe it was the shock of discovering I had an uncle. Maybe it was the sight of Derek groveling. Maybe it was just the weight of years finally breaking. But in that moment, something clicked. You laughed, I said quietly. What? When I told you my mother died, you laughed. My voice grew stronger. You said, so what? You told me to serve food while my heart was breaking. You haven't asked me once, not once, how I'm feeling. Clara, I was under pressure. You've been under pressure for 6 years, Derek, and for 6 years I've been invisible. I've been your maid, your decoration, your convenient excuse for a wife. His face twisted. For just a second, the mask slipped, and I saw the real Derek underneath. The cold, selfish man I'd been married to all along. You're being dramatic, he snapped. You always do this. You always make everything about you. That's enough. Mr. Harrison stepped between us. Clara, let's go. He guided me toward the door. The other guests parted like the Red Sea, their faces a mixture of shock and second-hand embarrassment. At the threshold, Mr. Harrison paused and turned back to Derek. I want you at my office Monday morning, he said calmly. 9 o'clock sharp. We'll discuss your future with the company then. Derek's face crumbled. Richard, please. But we were already walking out the door. The night air hit my face and I realized I was still crying. I hadn't stopped crying since that morning. My eyes burned, my chest ached, everything hurt. Mr. Harrison led me to a sleek black car parked at the curb. A driver jumped out and opened the back door. "Get in," Mr. Harrison said gently. "I'll take you somewhere safe." I hesitated. This man was a stranger. I just found out he was my uncle, but I didn't know him. I didn't know anything about him. "I know you have no reason to trust me," he said, reading my hesitation. "But I promise you, Clara, I would never hurt you. Grace was my sister. You're my family." Family. That word broke something open inside me. I got in the car. We drove in silence for a while. The city lights blurred past the windows. I stared at them without really seeing. Finally, Mr. Harrison spoke. "I imagine you have a lot of questions." "I don't even know where to start," I admitted. He nodded, "Then let me start at the beginning." He took a deep breath. "Your mother and I grew up in Michigan. Small town, tight-knit family. Our parents were good people, hardworking, but they had very specific ideas about how life should go." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "When Grace was 19, she fell in love. His name was Thomas Mitchell." "My father," I whispered. "Yes, your father," Mr. Harrison smiled sadly. "He was a wonderful man from what I remember, kind, genuine, but our parents, they didn't approve." "Why not?" "Thomas came from nothing. He was working his way through community college, trying to make something of himself. Our father wanted Grace to marry someone established, someone with money and status." I felt a pang in my chest. My father had never talked much about his background. Now I understood why. "Grace refused to give him up," Mr. Harrison continued. "She and our parents fought constantly, and then one day, she just left. Ran off with Thomas in the middle of the night. No goodbye, no note, nothing." His voice cracked slightly. "I was only 17. I woke up and she was gone." "She never contacted you?" "Our parents forbade it. They said if she wanted to throw away her life on some nobody, she could do it alone. They cut her off completely." He shook his head. "I was young, scared. I didn't know how to find her without going against them." "But later, when you were older?" "I tried, God, I tried, but Grace was smart. She'd changed her name, moved around a lot. By the time I had the resources to really search, the trail had gone cold." I thought about my mother, all those years struggling alone, raising me by herself after my father died, never once mentioning that she had a family out there, a brother who might have helped. "Why didn't she reach out to you?" I asked. Mr. Harrison was quiet for a long moment. "Pride, maybe, shame, fear of rejection," he sighed. "Our parents died about 15 years ago, I think Grace probably assumed I sided with them, that I didn't want anything to do with her." "But you did." "Every single day." His eyes glistened. "Every single day I thought about her, wondered where she was, if she was okay, if she was happy." A tear slid down his cheek. "And now she's gone, and I never got to tell her." He couldn't finish the sentence. I reached out and took his hand. This man, this stranger who was somehow family, was grieving the same loss I was. "She was happy," I said softly. "She had a good life, a hard life sometimes, but she was happy." He squeezed my hand. "Thank you for telling me that." The car pulled up in front of a beautiful brownstone in an upscale neighborhood. Mr. Harrison's home, I assumed. "You'll stay here tonight," he said. "I have a guest room. We can talk more in the morning." I nodded, too exhausted to argue. Inside, the house was warm and elegant. A housekeeper named Martha fussed over me, bringing tea and blankets and soft words of comfort. I sat in the guest room, wrapped in a thick robe, staring at nothing. My mother was dead. My marriage was over, and I'd just discovered I had an uncle I never knew existed. In the span of 12 hours, my entire life had been turned upside down. But you know what? For the first time in years, I felt something I'd forgotten. Hope. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay in bed thinking about everything. The life I'd been living. the person I'd become, the woman I'd lost along the way. And somewhere around 4 in the morning, I made a decision. I was done being small. I was done apologizing for existing. I was done letting anyone treat me like I was worthless. My mother had spent her whole life fighting for love, fighting to survive, fighting to give me a better life. I wasn't going to let her sacrifice be for nothing. The next morning, I came downstairs to find Mr. Harrison, Richard. He insisted I call him Richard, already at the breakfast table. "How are you feeling?" he asked gently. "Like I've been hit by a truck," I admitted, but also weirdly clear. He nodded. Grief does that sometimes, cuts through all the noise. We ate breakfast together, eggs and toast and fresh orange juice. Simple food, comforting. "So," Richard said carefully, "what do you want to do now?" I set down my fork. "I want a divorce." He didn't look surprised. "I figured, do you have a lawyer?" "No, I don't have anything." I laughed bitterly. "I quit my job years ago because Derek wanted me to. I have no income, no savings of my own. Everything is in his name." "That's not a problem." Richard pulled out his phone and sent a quick text. "I have the best family law attorney in the city. She'll take your case. Don't worry about the cost. I'll cover everything." "Richard, I can't let you." "Clara," he looked at me steadily. "I missed 35 years with your mother. I can't get that back, but I can be here for you now. Please, let me help." I wanted to argue. I wanted to insist on doing it myself, but the truth was I was exhausted, broken. I needed help. "Okay," I whispered. "Thank you." Over the next few days, things moved quickly. I went back to the house once, escorted by Richard and his driver, to collect my belongings. Derek wasn't there. He was at work, probably begging Richard to reconsider whatever punishment was coming. I packed everything that mattered to me into 3 suitcases: clothes, photos, a few books, my mother's jewelry. It wasn't much, but it was mine. The divorce papers were filed within the week. Derek tried to fight it, of course. He called me constantly, leaving voicemails that ranged from pleading to threatening. "Clara, please, let's talk about this. You're making a huge mistake. You'll regret this. You can't survive without me. I made you who you are. You're nothing without me." But his words didn't hurt anymore. They bounced off me like rain off a window. Because I knew the truth now. I wasn't nothing. I'd never been nothing. I'd just forgotten who I was. Meanwhile, Richard kept his promise. He fired Derek. I found out from Martha, who heard it from Richard's assistant. Apparently, the Monday morning meeting had been brutal. "Walked him out of the building in front of everyone," Martha said, shaking her head. "Security escorted him like a common criminal." Part of me felt a twinge of something, guilt, maybe. Derek's career had been his whole identity. Without it, he had nothing. But then I remembered his words. "Your mother died, so what?" And the guilt faded fast. But here's what I didn't expect. Derek didn't go quietly. 2 weeks after being fired, he showed up at Richard's house. Drunk, angry, pounding on the door at 11 o'clock at night. "CLARA, he screamed. "Get out here, we need to talk." I was upstairs in the guest room. My heart pounded as I heard his voice. "CLARA, I know you're in there. You think you can just throw away 6 years. You think you can just walk away." Richard was already on the phone with the police. "Stay upstairs," he told me firmly. "Don't engage." But I was tired of hiding, tired of running, tired of being afraid. I walked to the window and looked down at Derek. He was disheveled, nothing like the polished man I'd married. His shirt was untucked. His hair was a mess. He looked broken. For a moment, I felt something. Maybe pity, maybe sadness for the man he could have been. But then he looked up and saw me. "There you are," he shouted. "You ruined my life, you know that. Everything I worked for gone because of you." "No, Derek," I said calmly. "Because of you, you did this to yourself. I gave you everything. The house, the clothes, the lifestyle, and this is how you repay me." "You gave me things, Derek. You never gave me love. You never gave me respect. You gave me a cage, and you convinced me it was a home." His face twisted with rage. "You're gonna regret this, Clara. I swear to God, you're gonna." The police arrived. 2 officers pulled Derek away from the property while he continued to scream threats. As the cop car drove away, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Free. But that wasn't the end, not even close. Because what happened next, that changed everything. The funeral was beautiful. I know that sounds strange to say, but it was. My mother would have loved it. Richard helped me plan everything. He hired a funeral director, arranged for flowers, took care of all the details I was too overwhelmed to handle. "It's the least I can do," he said when I thanked him for the 100th time. "For Grace, and for you." We held the service at a small chapel outside the city. The kind of quiet, peaceful place my mother always loved. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows. Soft music played. I expected a small gathering. My mother had been private. She didn't have many friends. But when I walked into that chapel, I stopped dead in my tracks. It was full. People I'd never met, dozens of them, filling every pew. "Who are all these people?" I whispered to Richard. He smiled softly. "Your mother touched more lives than you knew, Clara." Over the next hour, I heard stories I'd never heard before. A woman named Patricia told me how my mother had helped her leave an abusive relationship 20 years ago. "She showed up at my door in the middle of the night," Patricia said, tears streaming down her face. "Didn't ask questions, just packed my bags and drove me to a shelter. She saved my life." An older man named George shared how my mother had given him money for groceries when he lost his job. "Wouldn't take no for an answer," he said, shaking his head. "Stuffed the envelope in my mailbox and drove away before I could refuse." A young woman named Alina told me my mother had paid for her college textbooks anonymously. "I only found out it was her years later," Alina said. "She never wanted credit, she just wanted to help." Story after story, person after person. My mother had spent her whole life quietly helping others, never asking for recognition, never expecting anything in return. And I had no idea. When it was my turn to speak, I could barely get the words out. "My mother was my hero," I said, my voice breaking. "She taught me what love looks like, what sacrifice looks like, what strength looks like." I paused, wiping my eyes. I spent the last few years forgetting those lessons, letting myself shrink, letting someone else define my worth, but standing here today, surrounded by all the lives she touched. I looked out at the crowd. I promised to be the woman she raised me to be, kind, strong, unafraid to help others, unafraid to stand up for myself. I looked at Richard, sitting in the front row with tears in his eyes. "Mom, I know you're watching. I hope I make you proud." After the service, Richard and I stood by her grave together, just the two of us. "She would have been so happy to see you again," I said quietly. "She talked about Michigan sometimes, about growing up there. I never understood why she got sad when she did." Richard nodded slowly. "I wish I'd found her sooner." "She forgave you, I know she did." I looked up at him. "She wasn't the type to hold grudges. She always said life was too short for bitterness." He smiled through his tears. "That sounds like Grace." We stood there in silence for a long while. The wind rustled through the trees. Somewhere a bird was singing. It felt like my mother was there with us, watching, approving. In the weeks that followed, I started rebuilding my life. It wasn't easy. Nothing worth doing ever is. But I took it one step at a time. First, I moved out of Richard's guest room and into a small apartment of my own. He offered to buy me a house, a nice one, with a garden, but I refused. "I need to do this myself," I told him. "I need to prove I can stand on my own 2 feet." He understood, but he insisted on paying my rent for the first 6 months. "Call it a family loan," he said with a wink. "You can pay me back when you're a millionaire." Next, I got a job. Nothing fancy. just an administrative position at a nonprofit organization that helped domestic abuse survivors. It felt right, meaningful, like I was continuing my mother's legacy in my own small way. The work was hard, the pay wasn't great, but for the first time in years, I felt like I had a purpose. And slowly, I started remembering who I was. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Derek fought it tooth and nail. He tried to claim I was entitled to nothing since I'd been a stay-at-home wife who contributed nothing to the household. But my lawyer, the one Richard had hired, was a shark. She dug up bank records, emails, everything. She proved that Derek had been financially controlling me for years, that he'd deliberately kept me dependent on him. In the end, I got half of everything. The house, the savings, the investments. It was more money than I'd ever had in my life. But you know what? I didn't want the house. Too many bad memories. I sold my share to Derek and put the money in the bank. Fresh start, clean slate. Derek didn't take the loss well. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd spiraled, lost his new job within months, started drinking heavily, burned through whatever bridges he had left. Part of me felt sorry for him. The man who'd once seemed so powerful, so in control, reduced to nothing. But then I remembered how he'd treated me, how he'd made me feel worthless, how he'd laughed on the worst day of my life. And I realized something important. His downfall wasn't my responsibility. He'd made his choices. Now he was living with the consequences. I had my own life to focus on. And what a life it was becoming. Richard became the family I never knew I had. We had dinner together every Sunday. He told me stories about my mother when she was young, about their childhood in Michigan, about the mischief they used to get into. She was always the brave one, he said one evening, chuckling. I was the cautious one. She'd climb the tallest tree, and I'd be at the bottom yelling at her to be careful. I laughed. That sounded exactly like my mom. He also told me about his own life, his career, his late wife, Margaret, who'd passed away 10 years earlier, the children they never had. I always wanted a family, he admitted. Margaret and I tried, but it wasn't meant to be. He looked at me with such warmth. Finding you, Clara, it's like getting a second chance. I hugged him tight. Thank you for finding me, I whispered. But the best part, the part that really changed everything. It happened about 8 months after my mother's funeral. I was at work, going through some paperwork when my phone buzzed. A text from Richard. Dinner tonight. There's someone I want you to meet. I was curious. Richard rarely invited guests to our Sunday dinners. Sure, I texted back. Who is it? You'll see. 7 p.m., don't be late. When I arrived at Richard's house that evening, I could hear laughter coming from inside. Deep, warm laughter. I knocked, and Richard opened the door with a huge grin. Clara, come in, come in. I stepped inside and froze. Sitting in the living room was a man, about my age, maybe a little older, dark hair, kind eyes, a gentle smile. He stood up when he saw me. Clara, Richard said, I want you to meet someone. This is Daniel. He's the son of my oldest friend. Just moved back to the city after working overseas for a few years. Hi, Daniel said, extending his hand. I've heard a lot about you. I shook his hand. His grip was firm but gentle. All good things, I hope. He laughed. Only the best. Richard talks about you constantly. His amazing niece who's rebuilding her life from the ground up. I blushed. I actually blushed. We had dinner together, the three of us, and I couldn't stop noticing how different Daniel was from Derek. He asked questions, real questions, about my work, my interests, my dreams, and he actually listened to the answers. He laughed at my jokes, even the bad ones. He offered to help Richard with the dishes, and then actually followed through. And when I told a story about my mother, he got this soft look in his eyes. She sounds incredible, he said quietly. You're lucky to have had her. I was, I agreed, the luckiest. As I was leaving that night, Daniel walked me to my car. Would it be okay if I got your number? he asked, a little nervously. I'd love to get coffee sometime, if you're interested. I hesitated. The last time I'd trusted a man, it had nearly destroyed me. But there was something about Daniel, something genuine, something safe. Sure, I heard myself say. I'd like that. Our first coffee date turned into a second, then a third, then dinner, then a movie, then long walks in the park where we talked about everything and nothing. Daniel was patient. He never pushed, he never rushed. When I told him about Derek, about everything that had happened, he didn't try to fix it or minimize it. He just listened. You're incredibly brave, he said afterward. You know that, right? I don't feel brave. That's usually how it works, he smiled. The bravest people never see it in themselves. 6 months into dating, Daniel told me he loved me. We were sitting on a bench overlooking the river. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I love you, Clara, he said simply. I know that might seem fast, but I've never been more sure of anything in my life. My heart was pounding, but it wasn't fear this time. It was joy. I love you too, I whispered. He kissed me, soft, gentle, like I was something precious. And I realized something in that moment. This was what love was supposed to feel like. Not control, not criticism, not walking on eggshells. Just two people choosing each other, every single day. 1 year later, Daniel proposed. He did it at the cemetery, right by my mother's grave. I know that sounds morbid, but it was perfect. I wanted her to be here for this, Daniel explained, getting down on one knee. She raised the most amazing woman I've ever known. The least I can do is ask for her blessing. I was sobbing before he even finished asking the question. Yes, I managed to choke out. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. We got married in a small ceremony, just close friends and family. Richard walked me down the aisle. Your mother is so proud of you, he whispered as we approached the altar. I know she is. I squeezed his arm. Thank you for everything. The wedding was beautiful, simple, filled with love. And as I stood there, holding Daniel's hands, saying my vows, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The pain, the loss, the betrayal. But also the healing, the growth, the love. If my mother hadn't died that day, I might still be in that kitchen, still serving appetizers while my heart broke, still shrinking myself to fit someone else's expectations. Her death was the worst thing that ever happened to me. But it was also the thing that set me free. I know she's watching. I know she's smiling. And I know she finally got to see her brother again. A year after our wedding, Daniel and I had a daughter. We named her Grace. She has her grandmother's eyes, bright, curious, full of mischief. Richard spoils her rotten, of course. Every Sunday dinner, he shows up with a new toy or outfit. I'm making up for lost time, he says whenever I scold him. I've got 35 years of uncle duties to catch up on. I can't really argue with that. As for Derek, last I heard, he left the city, moved somewhere out west, trying to start over, I guess. I don't hate him anymore. I don't feel anything at all, really. He's just a chapter in my story, a painful one, but a chapter that led me here. And here is pretty wonderful. I'm sitting on the porch right now, watching Daniel push Grace on the swing set he built last weekend. She's giggling, that pure, joyful baby giggle that melts your heart. Richard is inside, helping set the table for Sunday dinner. I can hear him humming one of my mother's favorite songs. The sun is setting, the air smells like summer. And my heart is full. So full. I think about my mother every day, her strength, her kindness, her unwavering love. I think about the words she told me all those years ago. Life's gonna throw punches, but you keep your chin up and your heart soft. That's how you win. She was right. She was always right. I kept my chin up. I kept my heart soft. And I won. Not because I got revenge, not because Derek suffered, but because I found myself again. I found love. I found family. I found home. And you know what the best part is? This is just the beginning. Grace will grow up knowing she's loved, knowing she's valued, knowing she matters. She'll know the stories of her grandmother, the brave, kind woman who touched so many lives. And she'll carry that legacy forward. Because that's what love does. It ripples outward. It touches more lives than we can ever know. My mother spent her whole life planting seeds of kindness, and now I get to watch them bloom. I look up at the sky, at the soft pink and purple swirls of the sunset, and I smile. "I did it, Mom," I whisper. "I kept my heart soft, just like you taught me." The wind picks up slightly, rustling through the trees. And just for a moment, I swear I hear her voice. "I'm so proud of you, baby, so proud." I wipe away a tear, a happy tear. Then I stand up, walk across the yard, and join my family. Daniel catches my eye and smiles, that warm, loving smile that still makes my heart skip. "You okay?" he asks. I look at him, at Grace, squealing with delight on her swing, at Richard, waving at us from the kitchen window. At this beautiful, imperfect, wonderful life. "Yeah," I say, taking his hand. "I'm perfect." And we walk inside together. To dinner, to family, to everything I never knew I needed. To the happily ever after I almost didn't believe was possible. My mother used to say that every ending is just a new beginning. She was right about that too. This is my new beginning. And I'm never looking back. The door closes behind us, and the house fills with warmth and laughter and love. And somewhere up there, I know my mother is watching. Smiling. Finally at peace. Finally home. And we all lived happily ever after, with big smiles on our faces. The end. I hope you enjoyed this emotional story. Would you like me to adjust anything, or would you like another story written in this same style?